What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Howard Bender. Welcome into the Fantasy Time NFL DFS show. It is week 4 of the NFL season. Howard, before we went live here today, we were talking about just the state of the NFL when it comes to the injury report. James Grande has a great injury report article out over in Fantasy Time that you can all check up. But as the Friday injury news cycle hits, quite a few big names being ruled out already today. Some new names popping up on the injury report. And of course, those pesky limited practice participants. Ever since the NFL went away from the probable tags, now everybody is questionable and just leaves a lot of panic and uncertainty, it seems like, around certain players.
Well, you could thank your boy Bill Belichick for that one, because the injury report got all sorts of crapped up because of Belichick and his garbage and his cheating and his scheming and all the other fun stuff that Bill Belichick did to get the NFL to do it. Now, why they would have gotten rid of the probable tag versus the questionable tag, that I don't understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, it's we're living in a time now where it's really tough to trust exactly what you're hearing from the beat writers, because they're just mouthpieces for the coaches. And so what you do need to do is you need to dive into that Friday practice report and see who's in and who's out. Like, for example, one of the names that you threw out to me, Chris Olave, right? Like he's out for this week because he showed up late, or he's expected to be out because he showed up with a hamstring injury here on Friday's report. So having that kind of information is imperative before you start putting together your DFS lineups. Like, it's okay to kind of play around with some stuff, set your contests up, reserve them, but never finalize your lineup until after you see Friday and Saturday practice reports. That's my recommendation there.
Yeah, and even some of these players, I mean, like Olave, obviously not officially out yet. You have to assume he'll probably go through like pregame warmups and see if the hamstring's okay. But it's anybody that gets hurt on a Friday. They have one day basically to be good to go, and then or at 50%, and even then, risk of re-injury seems much higher. So, things we'll talk about as we go. Of course, with our NFL DFS show, we go position by position here, so we'll break it all down. But you'll see as we scroll through the skill position players, at least a lot of orange, a lot of red, and that's where the uncertainty of some lineups. You'll have the NFL DFS playbook, you'll have the dartboard out. Obviously, we do all of our updates and shows on Sunday to get you all ready for the main slate. So make sure you tune into that, and definitely don't lock in anything before you have all the information at your disposal. But taking a look what the information that we currently have, quarterback position, Jalen Hurts is your top priced quarterback here. He may be without both of his starting wide receivers. Devonta Smith already ruled out. AJ Brown questionable after missing last week against Tampa Bay. You have Patrick Mahomes, $7,100. Seemingly nobody knows where Travis Kelce is. Stroud, $7K. No Tank Dell this week, right? So your top 3 quarterback price wise are all, not their core wide receivers, core targets could be out of these games.
I'm not worried about Tank Dell being out. I don't consider Tank Dell to be a core target for CJ Stroud. It's Nico Collins, who was pestered by a hamstring injury, and it's Stephon Diggs. But Tank Dell, he's playing, like a 65 to 70% snap share. And, again, Bobby Slowick has no problem going with the 2 tight end set. So losing him doesn't really bother me that much. I actually like that game for a nice back and forth, because I think Jacksonville is going to be so crazy desperate that they're going to just start chucking the ball all over the field. I really do feel like they need that kind of a game. And, Houston's got a great pass rush, but, their secondary has shown some vulnerability at times. So I think that, Stroud is going to have to keep pace. So I actually really like him in this one here. As far as Mahomes goes, I mean, listen, I love Patrick Mahomes. Rashee Rice is going to have an interesting matchup here, because the corners are where it's at for the Chargers. It's not about, Derwin James suspended. He's usually the guy who contains Kelce or works over Kelce enough. So I actually think that we do see a little bit more Kelce. We'll get to that with the tight ends. But if I'm paying up right now, Stroud, is in the 7K range. Stroud is where I'm going to go, but I might as well just save $200 and just give me some Kyler Murray.
Yeah, when I wrote out the quarterback coach this week, Stroud was in there. I kind of gave him like, this is like my never say never, but I mean 3 weeks of just like average production for Stroud. Hasn't really paid off the price tag, but Jacksonville, best matchup pretty much on the board for quarterbacks, with the exception of Kyler, who was the cover of the quarterback coach this week. Has the Commanders, they're dead last in points allowed. Murray is home, but no Trey McBride. I mean, obviously that puts more stress on or emphasis on the wide receivers for this Arizona offense here, and that's a good way to attack Washington. But does no McBride at all worry you for Kyler this week?
No, not at all. Not even remotely. Because when you're looking at the Washington Commanders, it's all about who's opposite Benjamin St-Juste. And just play that wide receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have a field day. St-Juste, I've already done a video over at Fantasy Alarm, on our YouTube page here. So you guys can check out that short. But, the long and the short of it is Benjamin St-Juste has allowed 306 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns against him. Mike Evans, Malik Neighbors, and then most recently Jamar Chase have all torched him. So I'm not worried about that. I think if you're looking for a guy to help move the chains, maybe Greg Dortch.
Sure.
Working out of the slot, probably going to be a little bit more of an intriguing option. Michael Wilson should be a solid option too. And you know what? If you really want that dart throw, man, we can talk Elijah Higgins if you want about the, at the tight end position there, because that might be somebody you could be interested in.
Yeah, for value for sure. So Murray's there. Opposite of him, obviously Jaden Daniels, coming off of his record game there, 91% completion percentage against Cincinnati. We know the rushing upside is there. Finally, through the touchdown passes, Arizona's defense also not really up there among the best in the league in terms of defending the quarterback position. So a pretty strong, I think, mid-tier in this group. Even Burrow on the road, but we saw him finally get off against Kansas City, followed it up against this bad Washington team. Jamar Chase went off. He's got T. Higgins back. So I don't really mind either 3 of those quarterbacks if you wanted to go. Not so much in on Mayfield at 64. Anthony Richardson was one of my fades of the week in the quarterback coach at 63. So after that top tier at 6K, I don't really have much to do with this 6K range.
I know you and I are on opposite sides of Anthony Richardson. It's not that I'm using him in DFS. I'm fine leaving him in my season-long lineups here. It's a tough defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? We know that. But one of the other things that I think that we're looking at here is Richardson needs to get off the schneid. Like, he needs to get back to where he was in week 1. Week 1, they lost the game, but he still had a fantastic night of production, over 21 fantasy points for himself right there. Last 2 weeks have been brutal. What I think we're going to end up seeing here is a lot of TJ Watt getting into that backfield and chasing Anthony Richardson around. So while he might only throw you 120 yards, he could rush for 120 while running for his life. So I'm not going to invest in him in DFS, but I'm also not going to rule him out either.
Something about a quarterback that can't complete 50% of his throws. I understand the legs of where we've always prided his value, but that offense has to move, in order for him to score those touchdowns.
Sure.
Again, after that, you have Aaron Rodgers. Denver's defense is good. I don't really want to go there. Jordan Love could be back, questionable here. I don't know how you feel about him fresh off an injury. Minnesota's defense has been looking pretty good. Love at 6K is a nice value, I think, on any other slate, but I don't think I go there.
Yeah, I'm not going there either. I'm definitely not, looking in that direction. I'm not really enjoying anybody in this tier. I'm not enjoying, Rodgers against Denver, Purdy, Love at that price. Derek Carr, we just talked about the possibility of him being without Chris Olave and what that could end up doing for them. Kirk Cousins against the Saints, that doesn't enamor me. Lawrence is again, like I said, it's going to end up being like that, Blake Bortles kind of a situation where he's just chucking the ball all over the place. I think you kind of have to look down further here, right? I don't even want to use Sam Darnold against the Packers. I think that's a little bit of a trap for Sam Darnold and the Vikings. I know the Vikings have looked good so far, But yeah, as Admiral Akbar in Star Wars would say, it's a trap.
If I was Josh Wagner, I'd have the sounder for that. He's got the drop for you on Sirius XM there. Yeah, listen, Minnesota's had 2 home games, right? He's looked good in those home games. The touchdowns are great. We talked a lot about the Kevin O'Connell offense, and at this point, it seems like it's just like a plug and play for quarterbacks, right? Like Nick Mullins was productive as a quarterback, DFS wise. Josh Dobbs for a while productive as a quarterback in DFS, and now you're getting Sam Darnold, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 117 QB rating. But on the road here, I guess I'm a little. I want to see it happen again, right? The only road win he had or game he had so far is against the Giants. I do like Caleb Williams. He is the cover of the playbook this week, Howard. Maybe I'm going out on a ledge there with that, but 52 pass attempts last week against the Colts, 363 yards and 2 touchdowns. Could be getting Keenan Allen back. He's listed as questionable, but either way, I mean, the Rams aren't stopping anybody defensively.
No, they're not. They're not. One of the things that you have to take into consideration, I'm sure you've heard this from Coop, is that the Bears ran like 90 some odd plays last week.
Yeah.
Average number of offensive plays run in the NFL is like low 60s. So, are they going to kind of, maintain that pace? I don't know if you can look at it that way, but I do like Caleb Williams in the fact that it's a positive matchup because the Rams defense is bad. They can't generate a pass rush. They can't stop the run. Their secondary, with the exception of Tre'Davious White, their secondary is terrible. Is it Kobe Durant on the other side? Going to be opposite Rome Odunze, and I think that's going to be a nice moment there. So I would use Caleb Williams here. I just would not. I'm not going to expect him to throw it as much as he was there, even though they don't really have a great ground game. It's just not the style of play that Eberflus wants. And it just so happened that it ran that way last week, but I don't know if it runs the same way this week. I think he's fine to use as a GPP play because the floor is lava.
Sure.
But
I'll
if you're looking to pay down, though, why wouldn't you just automatically go to your boy Justin Fields?
Yeah, Fields. I want to go back to Williams quickly. I don't expect 52 pass attempts, but he had 37 the week before that. He had 29 in week 1. So they are willing to throw the football with him. So if he's going to be dropping back even an average of 30 times per game, I think there's the ceiling in this matchup. And I think you also look at the last 2 games were on the road. He's home here. I think there's a lot of positive movement here with Caleb Williams. I also like to believe in sort of a bit of the competitiveness. Who's been talked about all week? It's been Jaden Daniels, the number 2 pick, right? Caleb Williams is like, if he has any sense of like, I'm the guy, I was the number 1 pick. You think there'd be, maybe he wants to go out there and show out a little bit, and he's got the matchup to do so.
Yeah. Same thing happened to Bryce Young.
No, Bryce Young never had any of the attributes that Caleb Williams had.
He was the number 1 pick, though. Everyone's talking about CJ Stroud.
He shouldn't have been. I think we all know that at this point. Fields is fine. Listen, again, mobility is what we're looking for out of him. Only 6 yards rushing against the Chargers, but he got lucky with the touchdown. I mean, that saved his fantasy production. Other than that, his fantasy upside hasn't been what we've been used to for Justin Fields. Maybe that's because he's on a better team. Chicago, the last few years, wanted him to just run the option, right? Run the football, run the RPO, and Fields was out there running for 60, 70 yards a game. They're very happy to give Najee Harris 18, 20 carries and let him handle the workload and let Justin Fields make easy throws. Who would have thought Justin Fields 73, 65, and 78% completion percentages over the first 3 weeks? I don't know. Yes, Justin Fields can run. We saw that in week 1, 14 for 57. But it doesn't seem like this offense is built to have him run the way Chicago is trying to sort of play up to his mobility. I think Tomlin understands the system he wants to run. Arthur Smith has them running, some semblance of an offense, and their defense is really carrying them. So I like Fields. He's in the quarterback coach this week. This is a good spot, obviously, against the Indy defense. But I am also keeping an eye on, do they want Justin Fields just be a game manager that has a threat to run and not someone that is running the offense? And I think there's a difference there.
Sure, there's definitely a difference there. I mean, and we're looking at a point here with Arthur Smith where, like, I really can't ascertain what kind of an offense they truly are going to run, because I feel like they spent 90% of their time in the preseason building an offense around Russell Wilson as their quarterback,
Yeah.
as opposed to Justin Fields. So making those pivots, definitely something that you have to take into consideration. Maybe this is the time where they do get him to run a little bit more, that they continue to, just grind out some RPO work and give him some more of those options. I think it's definitely something that's open. It's just something that we haven't seen right now because, well, A, they've been winning their games,
Yeah.
and B, they're sticking with the game plan that 95% of their team already knows and was expecting.
Yep, 100%. And even the touchdown that he threw last week was on a broken defensive play. A guy was wide open up the middle there, and Calvin Austin just you could hard to miss it, right? So I like Fields for what we think he can be. I don't know if I'm gonna build, if I'm multi-entering, I'll probably have a Fields. I don't think he's part of my core builds this week, just because I just don't know what we're gonna get out of that. Anything else for value down here? I mean, do we chase what Dalton did last week, at home against Cincinnati? Their defense has been pretty rough. No Adam Thielen this week, placed on IR, but they still have Deontay Johnson, who's expected to play despite dealing with a groin. They have Xavier Legette. Jonathan Mingo has been a popular play this week for value. Chuba Hubbard's been popular this week in DFS circles. Like, where are you in Andy Dalton this week?
I'm fine with it. I mean, come on, the revenge game narrative against Cincinnati. It's just, you're not looking for outlandish numbers from Andy Dalton. And the fact that he's only 5,300 here on DraftKings tells you if he gives you 225 and he throws for a touchdown, he's already returned value for you. So, knowing just how awful Cincinnati's defense is, because I just saw that Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill are both going to be out again this week. One's listed as out, the other one's listed as doubtful. That you could drive a boat through the hole that they're going to have in the defensive line, and all that's going to do is it's going to open up the passing game even more, because once you just start running the football, which Dave Canales loves to do, it just opens up all the play action downfield. It's going to give an opportunity. You can use Deontay Johnson for all the intermediary work and use Mingo and Legette as two guys to stretch the field once you establish play action. So, yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one. I think Cincinnati still takes this game, but I think Dalton makes it a little interesting for everybody.
I agree. I got nothing else down here though. We're not going to play in the backup quarterbacks. We're not going to play.
Nope.
If Herbert's out, would you look at Heineke at 5K against Kansas City?
Nope.
Okay.
They lost Rashawn Slater and they lost Joe Alt.
Yeah.
So tell me, with Chris Jones and George Karlaftis on the defensive line, how much time is anybody going to have to throw?
Maybe we go put some money on Chris Jones over sacks. We've talked about doing a betting show, Howard. Maybe we throw some picks out here. Whatever Chris Jones sack prop is this week, take the over.
Take it.
All right, running backs here. We talked Philly. They can be without both of their top two wide receivers. Tampa Bay's running defense, they're allowing the 30th. They're in 30th in run defense. That's not usually the MO of Tampa Bay, but I guess if they don't have a strong middle here, big Saquon Barkley day possibly on the way here.
I was looking to see, do we know if Vita Vea was back at practice? That's a huge thing. Like, Vea's been banged up, and he missed last week, and I don't know if he missed the week before that also. But
I'm checking right now. We got
Vita Vea questionable with the knee. That's all I'm seeing. Limited practice on Thursday for Vita Vea. So that's just something that you have to watch. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna say no to Saquon Barkley. Yeah. I had this conversation with the guys from KTIK out in Boise, Idaho. I do a fantasy segment with those guys, and they were asking me about Saquon. I was like, listen, this is the ideal back for Kellen Moore. Like, this is the back that had Saquon been with the Cowboys in Kellen Moore's offense for all those years, the Cowboys would have won Super Bowl upon Super Bowl upon Super Bowl. There's no doubt in my mind about it. He is everything that Kellen Moore wants in a running back. It's just a question of, now it's like, all right, how much is Tampa Bay going to focus in on that and, and go from there. But I love Saquon Barkley. I've got him all over the place in season long.
Me
Do I
too.
pay up the $8,000 for him, or do I pay
If you're using some value at quarterback, you wide receiver this weekend. Clay Cansey's also out already for Tampa Bay, so they could be without Cansey and Vea here. That's a big hit to their defensive line. So you got Barkley up at the top, obviously. Breece Hall, he's been a PPR machine. Jonathan Taylor had a big week last week. Alvin Kamara, questionable with the hip there. Bijan Robinson. I looked again at this top tier after Barkley. I mean, I think Breece Hall is probably going to be good in cash this week. But I didn't really love anything else. Like, are you buying into what we got out of Kyron Williams last week? Because he hasn't been much of anything else, this season in terms of like where he's been priced at. I don't know. I've been less than enamored with the top half of the running back after you get bats like Barkley and Hall here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's fine. That's fine. You don't need to run Jonathan Taylor up against Pittsburgh. If Kamara is if Kamara's not banged up, I'll happily use Kamara, no problem.
Sure.
Falcons are still giving up like 130 rushing yards per game, and you're talking about a totally different run scheme than what they've already faced. So I'm fine with that.
Should we be worried? Sorry to cut you off. Should we be worried about Kamara? This is the most workload he's seen carrying the football, and now he's getting banged up. Like, is that a concern we should have here? They don't have the bull ram anymore to like kind of take some of the carries off his plate. He's 26 and 20 carries the last 2 weeks, and now he's got hip and rib injuries.
Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, until there's like genuinely a reason to be concerned, I'm not going to be concerned. I'm still going to run him out there. If it means not using him in DFS until he's healthy, well then okay, fine. But this is DFS, so who gives a crap if he's banged up or not? If he's banged up, you don't use him. If he's not banged up, you use him.
Fair enough. All right. Jordan Mason's still locked for me at 67. Looks like Mixon's going to be back this week at 68. Gets Jacksonville. Both of those plays I think are fine. I love James Conner this week. If you're playing the Washington side with like Daniels and McLaurin, you want to go James Conner on the other side as the comeback stack. Like, love him. Aaron Jones revenge game at $6,400. I mean, I think there's some pretty good 6K guys here, which is why, again, I haven't found myself gravitating too much to the top end.
Yeah, I've got no reason to dispute anything that you're saying. Jordan Mason, I think, is a great play here. I'm not gonna. It's so funny. I mean, again, like I said, Minnesota people are gonna hate me for this, but I'm in on the Packers this week.
Okay,
and I think that the Packers step it up, and I think that there is regression for Sam Darnold, and I'm not really that concerned about an Aaron Jones revenge game narrative kind of thing. I'm just, again, it's like 84% of the public money is all in on Minnesota. I'm running the other way.
Sure.
Lambo.
The PPR work for Jones is the encouraging thing, right? 6 targets in each of those 2 games there, 10 catches. So on DraftKings specifically, it plays out. No Austin Eckler for Washington this week. Does that give a bump to Brian Robinson Jr. for you all on the spot?
I mean, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit. I mean, I don't really know who they have. Do they have anybody else who can catch pass?
I'm not even sure their third string running backs. They got Jeremy Nichols.
Oh, that's their backup. Yeah. Well, yeah. Give me Brian Robinson over even a thought about Nichols.
Yeah, so Robinson there. Again, good just being for all the work, caught 3 passes in week 1. So, so like I said, I kind of like the 6K range in this spot. 5K guys, I guess Zach Moss at 59 and Chuba Hubbard at 57 would be 2 more to the 2 of the more popular options down here.
Oh, I'm definitely looking at both of them. Listen, we always, we forget that Carolina, they've got okay corners, right? I mean, JC Horn is a decent play, right? That Carolina sucks at stopping the run. They've sucked at stopping the run the last couple of years, and again, we look at it this way, and it's so funny. Everybody's like, so down on Zach Moss. I don't understand the hate for Zach Moss, and maybe that's just big fantasy trying to shove Chase Brown down our throats over and over again. Mm-hmm. But I mean, how many times do you have to look at what the Cincinnati, what Zach Taylor does as far as his offense goes, right?
Yeah.
Last year, the Bengals were dead last in team rushing attempts. Yet Joe Mixon was in the top 5 for running back rushing attempts. What does that tell you? Yeah, you mixed in Chase Brown here and there, while Mixon was running the football. But Zach Taylor likes a bell cow back. He likes to having one guy. Like he'll utilize Chase Brown every once in a while, but he's not living and dying by Chase Brown. So if the Bengals get a lead, what are they doing? They're going to run the freaking football, and they're going to run it with Zach Moss. Like to me, it's almost a no-brainer. And then Chuba Hubbard on the other side, again, no Sheldon Rankins, no BJ Hill. Yeah, I mean, listen, I would build a lineup. You know what? I'm gonna pretend to build a lineup alongside you here, and I'm gonna put just Moss and Hubbard into my lineup as locked plays.
All right. That works for me here. I think we could have an interesting spot. If Jerome Ford ends up not playing, now continue to be limited on Thursday. We got to get the Friday practice report for him. He didn't practice on Wednesday. You and I loved Jerome Ford last week. He got 10 fantasy points, so he wasn't a killer, but we thought the Browns were going to be in a much better spot than they ended up being. They didn't even really utilize him until later in that game too, which is a bit confusing. But Las Vegas is a great spot for running back. So if Ford is active, I'd be willing to give him yet another go. If not, we might be looking at some Donta Foreman for some value because they don't really have other running backs on that team yet. So we'll see what happens there with Cleveland. No Jalen Warren, so it's going to be the Najee Harris show again at $5,600. I think he's good for cash games. Mm-hmm. The Kansas City backfield is going to be interesting because they elevated Kareem Hunt. They got Carson Steele, took all the carries. They have P. Ryan to get some of the PPR work. Are you just full avoiding the Kansas City backfield because we just don't know what to expect at this point?
Oh, I'm definitely avoiding it if I can. Why bother? Like that's the funny thing. We're doing a DFS show. We're not doing a season-long fantasy show. If you've got 3 running backs and you're not sure of which one of the guys is going to see the most touches, and you've got a new sort of wild card in there like Kareem Hunt, why would you even remotely use Carson Steele or Samaje Perine unless you're building like this, like all crazy contrarian dart throw kind of, wish in one hand, crap in the other type of a lineup?
I mean, I think the obvious question is just that you got Steele at 17 carries last week, so if there is some sort of solidified statement, idea, role, practice report that says Steele's still getting the first team reps and he's the guy, like you'll take the Isaiah Pacheco replacement, right? Like we were all into Pacheco because he's getting all these carries. If that's what we can expect for Steele, there's definitely value at 55.
Right, but Pacheco was the lead back.
Yeah.
Steele might be getting the between the tackles kind of opportunities and stuff like that, but
sure.
To me, it's not, I get what happened last week. I just don't necessarily know if it repeats, especially when you are bringing in Kareem Hunt, who can take it between the tackles. It's not his forte, but again, like to me, that's just, it's a beyond contrarian pick to like grab Steele and say, well, he had 17 carries last week in that matchup. So, he's going to do that. I mean, it doesn't work like that, really.
Yeah, I agree. These are questions that I know we've seen in our Discord, regarding the Kansas City backfield and where we think, it all may sort of play itself out. Rostership wise, Steele is the highest rostered back this week of that trio, but it's only at 3% right now. So again, super contrarian play. I don't have any other value or running back interest here. I mentioned Donta Foreman already. Where's his price tag even at? Foreman is 4,300. So if James Ford ends up being ruled out, I think Foreman could be.
Then you got your value. Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else for you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Wide receiver is going to have a lot of discussion points because of all the injuries that we see here. Jefferson is your top price guy at 87. Kupp, we know, is out. Brown now questionable. Jamar Chase, obviously last week, good to go. Adams ruled out. Devonta Smith ruled out. Taking a look at just sort of the 7K and above range, Evans and up. Talk to me here. What's some of our core targets?
I mean, of the three guys who are healthy and able, I mean, Jefferson, Chase, and Rice. Like, why? I mean, I'm not gonna screw around with AJ Brown just yet. I'll see what happens, and if I'm building, 20 lineups, then okay, then I can throw him in there and take that shot. But I don't know. Again, I'm gonna balk at Jefferson. I think he'll still have a great, game, but 8,700 is definitely pricey. For $1,000 less, I'll take Jamar Chase. Yeah, I can definitely do that. Or for, 1,400 less, I'll take Rashee Rice. I think both of those guys. I think Rice is in a little bit tougher of a spot than Chase.
Yeah.
But I still think that he's in a good place to get.
Yeah, Rice has been insane, obviously. Number one wide receiver for the Chiefs. Great value for him. Nico Collins is right under him, too. Obviously, we like this spot for the Houston passing offense. Love the targets for Nico Collins here at $7,200. And again, a bunch of guys questionable. Evans and Godwin should play this week. We know Philadelphia has been exposed a bit, throwing the football. Godwin's been ridiculously good. Outperformed Evans last week. As Evans kind of got shut down there, Godwin's been really good. 6K range again. DJ Moore, I like Chicago. Stephon Diggs had the breakout week.
How did we not mention Marvin Harrison Jr., by the way?
Because he had the questionable tag on him.
He's got a quad injury, sure. I mean, but he was limited in practice on Thursday. We're being told that the quad issue isn't there. And he's going up against Benjamin St-Juste.
Sure.
I got to give him a mention.
Okay.
No doubt.
That works for me. Again, I like Kyler Murray. You got to like someone who's going to throw the football too. So that plays up well. Again, I just think it's super strong 6K range. There's not much I wouldn't play here. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I'd play more. I'd play Godwin, Diggs, Ayuk I'm fine with even. Is there somebody you wouldn't play in this range?
No, probably not. I think everybody really is in a good spot, for this. I mean, DJ Moore is probably going to see a lot of Tre'Davious White, and maybe that's not a great thing for him. I kind of more bullish on Odunze on the other side of the field. Sure. But I think Moore is okay. I like Diggs more than I like Collins, actually.
Yeah. I
think Ayuk is fine. Amari Cooper got, all sorts of great attention last week. And, and maybe that kind of turns things out a little bit more for him. But I mean, yeah, there's no reason to sit here and look at any of these guys and be like, no. Right. No.
Keenan Allen would be the only no for me, I think. Right.
Yeah. Coming back from the injury. Sure.
Yeah, that'd be it. I do like Cooper as a little sneaky play here again in Las Vegas. The targets have been great for the Cleveland wide receivers. Just the quarterback play has been horrific. Under 6K, got T. Higgins at 59, worked his way back last week. McLaurin finally had the big week, $5,800 for him. Deebo Samuel's questionable, so I don't think I'm going to be chasing any Juwan Jennings, play there. But if there's no Olave, Rashid is here. If Love is back, you got the Green Bay wide receivers. No Devontae Adams, so Jacoby Myers is stepping in to be the number one guy. Him and Brock Bowers probably your top two guys in Las Vegas.
A little more bullish on Bowers there than Jacoby Myers, only because you see like Trey Tucker getting more and more involved as well, and
sure,
like Jacoby Myers doesn't play the same game that Devontae Adams plays. That's that's what you have to. When you're looking at, does the wide receiver too? Like if Chase is out, then I'm all in on T. Higgins, right? Sure. Because T. Higgins can be a wide receiver one. I don't necessarily know if Jacoby Myers is that guy.
No, but he's a chain mover for them, right? Like Trey Tucker guy stretches the field, so if there's easy throws to be made, I think, again, 7 of 9 last week for Myers and a score. So don't hate it. If you are in on Jacksonville, obviously Christian Kirk broke out. Another 9 targets for Ryan Thomas Jr. I'm pretty high on the rookie here. So you want like a cheap stack. If you're stacking the Houston side, you need someone to come back. Christian Kirk, like I said, finally broke out 8 of 10. My bet of the week last week when we talked on this game on Thursday or Sunday, what it was on the show. Christian Kirk, first quarter receiving yards was at 2.5. He had one catch for 6 yards. We cashed. I'd be willing to go back here because they have to get the football to Christian Kirk. Like, he's their number one receiver. It was just shameful to see 1 for 3 and 1 for 4 the first 2 weeks out of the Jacksonville offense. You got to get the football to your wide receivers here. So, again, good plays. You mentioned Rome Odunze here. Rookie broke out 6 of 11, 112, and a score last week.
Yeah, and again, I don't expect, Caleb Williams to be throwing that far, but if you look at, what Kobe Durant has done on the opposite side of Tre'Davious White, it has not been good. How about this? 327 yards, 4 touchdowns. We watched Jameson Williams destroy him in week 1, and then it was Juwan Jennings who beat the snot out of him last week, as well. So, I guess the only guy who didn't have a good game was Michael Wilson, but then again, that was because Marvin Harrison Jr. was too busy torching Tre'Davious White at that point. So right. I think Odunze's in a really nice spot, and I love the value here at 52.
I agree. 5K range and below. Obviously, if you're in on Green Bay, if Jordan Love is back, Christian Watson is there at 5K. Jahan Dotson might be the wide receiver 1 for Philly this week if AJ Brown is not able to go, but no Devonta Smith. Dotson played a bunch of snaps last week. He just didn't do anything with them. He's 5K.
What a shock. Jahan Dotson got a bunch of snaps, but didn't do anything with them.
They didn't target him. I mean, but if there's no Brown and no Smith, I mean, I feel like they have to incorporate him a little bit. I do like Leggett at $4,800. What are your thoughts here in this upper 4K, low 5K?
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting options here. There's nobody that's really standing out to me, to the point where I'm like, oh my God, I got to get this guy in. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I could give a look to Josh Palmer at 47. That's not bad. Again, I think that TJ Watt, pass rush for Pittsburgh is going to force a lot of quick throws to Anthony Richardson. I know you don't like him, but you know what? Little dump off passes to Josh Downs to help move the chains. I'm kind of in on that.
Okay. $4,600 for Downs there. Value tier, Mooney, $4,400. I played him again. I loved him coming over to Atlanta. Last 2 weeks have been great. The price tag has not caught up yet to what he's doing. So I like Mooney there at $4,400. You mentioned Dortch. Do we get the Dorcher chamber this week without Trey McBride?
I mean, I guess it's definitely worth the attention for sure.
$4,300 for him.
I also kind of like Michael Wilson to have himself a decent game here. Again, it's the Washington secondary. They suck.
8 of 9, 64 yards for Wilson last week. Definitely could be in for a bigger play. Yossi Vash had the touchdown last week. I mean, we all thought he was going to take a step back with T. Higgins back, but he's still out there. Do you think it's more so like Higgins was getting the rust off and Yossi Vash continues to?
Yeah, I kind of think it's that. I mean, you look and you had games where Tyler Boyd definitely popped last year for them, or the last 2 years. Yossi Vash is kind of in that realm as well. If you're going to focus on Higgins and Chase this week, then Yossi Vash maybe pulls back a little bit. But if you're dealing with a team that's really struggling in slot coverage, then, maybe Yossi Vash plays a little bit more.
Mentioned Trey Tucker earlier. He's 3,600, 7 catches, 9 targets, 54-yarder last week, 96 yards. Got to think he'll maybe make an appearance in the dartboard this week.
I mean, for $3,600, I mean, yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, he's got good speed. I mean, I just, again, yeah, I guess maybe it's because I'm just not in on Jacoby Myers that I'm kind of eyeballing Tucker a little bit more. I'd have to dive deeper into it.
3rd round pick last year. It's not like he's this out of nowhere, dark throw,
Right.
So I like it. Any other value wide receivers for you?
I'm not really seeing anything at the moment right now, but
I know Mingo's popped up in conversations with Thielen out. He's 3,300, but again, not a ton of excitement necessarily there. Tight end. McBride is out. Coop has been talking up Travis Kelce this week because no Durham and James. But Kelce hasn't done anything. Obviously, the chalk is Bowers now without Devontae Adams in the lineup at 56. George Kittle said he will play. He's not on the injury report for Friday, so he's back against New England. Goddard broke slates last week with his performance there, 10 for 170. What are your thoughts on the tight end position here?
I mean, I'll pay up for Kelsey. I put him into my contrarian corner video because, again, Derwin James is out because the Chargers have good cover corners and because they're going to end up focusing a little bit more on Rashee Rice. We saw the interview with Patrick Mahomes who said until they take two guys off of Kelsey on the regular, I'm just gonna keep feeding the guys who are sitting in one-on-one coverage. And so, I kind of look at that statement, and I kind of look at the fact that Derwin James is out and where the strengths are for this Chargers defense. I definitely like it. I like it, and I'll use it in DFS. I mean, Bowers is going to be the easy chalk if you are paying up for it. I believe it or not, I just don't have interest in Goddard.
Okay.
I don't. I think he's a mid-level tight end who saw a great opportunity because everybody else was out and it was a decent matchup for him. But I mean, again, I'm just not gonna, I don't buy him as like a 12 target 100-yard guy on the regular.
Sure. I think just by default, he was just left open a lot. Again, they forgot about him on that 61-yarder. He was just by himself. Pitts is 48, and obviously a good matchup because we just talked about Goddard lit them up, so those numbers may be a bit skewed. Cole Kmet had a huge game last week out of nowhere, 10 of 11. We do talk rookie quarterbacks and their affinity for tight ends. If Keenan Allen's out again, maybe Cole Kmet, continues to sort of ride some value. But tight end for me drops off again. I don't know. Ertz, Freiermuth, like they're fine.
I think, Ertz and Freiermuth are good, solid guys to use. I think Conklin in the middle of the field for the Jets is in a good spot as well with Alex Singleton out. Not a whole lot of interest in Gesicki now that everybody's back.
Mm-hmm.
If Evan Engram is out, I don't mind using Brenton Strange.
Yep. Yeah, and Ingram's already been ruled out so he'll be there.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, if you're looking for a pay down, give me Hayden Hurst. He's running routes on 52% of his snaps. He's running more routes than Will Dissly is. Will Disley's spending more of his time blocking than he is receiving. And the Kansas City Chiefs, the opposition has been throwing to the tight end position more than 11 times per game and successfully doing it for over 111 yards per game. So I think if you're going to pay down for like 2,800 and you're just going to look for like a dirt cheap guy, I think Hurst is worth that look, especially because, they're going to have to just dump the ball off quickly. They're not going to be able to just run the football constantly because you're missing two of your best offensive linemen. So if your quarterback is under duress, he's going to have to dump it off as quick as possible. And maybe those are just short routes for Hurst.
That works for me. Defense, obviously there's a lot of good matchups up at the top. If you're looking to target, the 49ers get New England at home. The Jets go up against Bo Nix and company. They're also home. The Chiefs get a backup quarterback, missing both of their offensive linemen. So, again, obvious spots to spend up. I obviously like the Steelers because I am off of Anthony Richardson this week. I think turnovers and sacks are in the cards there. But I built a lot of lines with the Houston Texans defense at 3K this week.
Listen, I'm totally fine with that, man. I'm totally fine with that. I love the Texans defense. I tell everybody to use them in season long all the time. You know that there are going to be a ton of mistakes. So I'm perfectly fine utilizing that. And for $3,000, that's easy peasy right there.
11 sacks the last 2 weeks. They're back home. Their one home game was against Chicago, 2 picks, 7 sacks in that game, 15 fantasy points. So you get Jacksonville, like you said. You think Jacksonville's going to have to be throwing a lot in this game? Houston's going to be putting up points, turnovers, sacks, and if they decide for whatever reason Trevor Lawrence needs to get pulled, well, Mac Jones comes in, and we saw what that looked like in his one series. So he got strip sack fumbled right away. So liking Houston here this week. Any other defenses for you?
Nothing that's really ringing out yet.
Yeah, I agree. Were you building a lineup by chance while we were doing this today?
I kind of have a little something going here. If you want to, if you want to kind of piece it together here.
Sure.
What about you? Like, I mean, where do you want to live as far as this goes? Because I already said that I built a lineup with Zach Moss and Chuba Hubbard in there, that I was going to lock them in because I was a big fan. But, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I went Caleb Williams.
Spin a different direction.
I went Caleb Williams at running back. I mean, at quarterback here. Paired him up with Rome Odunze, like you were talking about as well. Kind of build this as we go along. I had Houston's defense plugged in at 3K. Where's Houston's defense? Here we go. Running back, I mentioned liking Saquon as a top spend up option. I went down to Moss with you as well. Deontay Johnson, though, again, I could be pivoting off of
the Odunze play.
Yeah, could be pivoting off if that groins continues to sort of pop up. Tight end was interesting. You know, again, I didn't really spend up at the tight end position. You know, I didn't think that it was as necessary. But now with Adams out, Bauer seems a bit more appealing than he did previously there. You mentioned, let's see, so we have 55-50.
Did you want Brian Thomas in there at 5,400?
Yeah, well, I'm using Texans D, so
there you go. All right.
Like Shaheed is kind of interesting. I had Mooney in my lineup. That's what I had before. I had Mooney for value, and then I had 6,700 for the flex. I think it was Jordan Mason or Stephon Diggs. So that was the lineup I put together. It doesn't have anybody in the Rams coming back. And I know we talk a lot about like stacks and comebacks and whatnot, but I just didn't see anybody in the Rams that I wanted to.
A little correlation. You didn't want a little Tutu Atwell in there?
No, I just didn't really feel it. So Williams, Barkley, Moss, Odunze, Deontay Johnson, Mooney, Bowers, Diggs, and the Texans defense was kind of the way I went. Spending up for Barkley obviously is where the difference is, because I take up Barkley and go with like a value running back or a mid-tier running back, then you can get a top wide receiver here.
Well, then here's my lineup. Everybody, you can snapshot this one here of John's, and here you go. I'll give you my lineup here as well. Should I share it with you, or should I just tell you? You can
send it to me. I'll throw it on the.
There you go. Throw Kyler Murray in there.
Okay.
And then use Moss and Hubbard.
Moss and Hubbard.
And I have no fear of this quad injury, so Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm going to pair him up right there.
Okay.
Darnell Mooney. Rashid Shaheed. Especially if Olave is going to be dinged up.
Right.
Kelsey me at the tight end position, please. Thank you very much. Romo Dunze comes in as my flex play. And then the Texans D.
Looks good.
Bing, bang, boom.
Murray, Moss, Hubbard, Harrison, Mooney, Shaheed, Kelsey, and Odunze for everybody. So got a couple of GPP lineups for you all. You can check that out. Of course, Bender's got his contrarian corner, his value plays, and his watch list all out for all of you guys. I have the playbook dartboard coming out. You got the quarterback coaches and all the other coaches available to everybody as well. Example lineups will be out on Sunday. You got the live stream at 11. You got Coop and Bender on XM at 10 o'clock. So plenty more still to come here. Make sure you get in our Discord if you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family. QR code there on the screen. 7-day free trial still going on. FantasyAlarm.com/win. If you use promo code Let's Go after your 7-day free trial, that first month is $19.98. So check it out. FantasyAlarm.com/win. Scan the QR code. Use promo code Let's Go. Bender and I will be back next week. We'll talk to you on Sunday. Good luck till then. We'll catch you later.